On the front of the envelope, we're going to start with Noah just real briefly, because if you think with me in the Bible, Noah and his family has just come out of the flood. So everything on the earth has just been cleaned off, and Noah's a clean start. In Genesis 6:5, this is just before the flood, God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. That's why it got wiped out. And then Noah and his 3 sons and their wives, 8 people, they've just come through the flood that has destroyed the whole earth. And God is going to be reseeding the earth, in a sense. If you just take everything off and then you replant, that's what God is doing with the population of the world, is it's being replanted with this man Noah. Now, what was the characteristic of Noah? How is he described in contrast to everyone else? Noah was a righteous man. So what is God expecting the earth to be like? Remember, everything was all bad. If he reseeds the earth with a righteous man and his family, what kind of earth does he want? A righteous family, a righteous earth. And this is what is amazing, is that if you think about when they are coming off the ark, they've all just been through the same thing. Everyone has the same knowledge, and that's what goes on the blank on the folder. Everyone had the same knowledge, and they had it not just in their heads, they had just experienced it. When you go through a natural disaster with other people, you all come out of that, and it draws you together. So what was the knowledge that they had? Well, there's one Creator God, and turning away from Him is a destructive path with very serious consequences. Everybody knows it. This is all found in Genesis chapter 6 through 9, so it's the very beginning of the Bible. Then in chapter 10, Genesis 10 and 11 and 12, we have the 2 envelopes that are inside. So all the peoples of the earth come from the righteous family of Noah. Okay, so you should have 2 envelopes, and one says the other nations, and one says Abraham. This is how the rest of Scripture is divided. And this is why, I was thinking, I wish I could help people when they read something in Scripture, they know where to put it. If you're reading something about the other nations, you put it in this envelope. If you read something about Abraham or his family, it goes in here. As we read the Bible, which section are we talking about here? Well, most of the Old Testament, it's just this envelope. But this comes into play next week. This is all I want us to see this week. All of the other nations turn away from God. And we see that at the Tower of Babel in chapter 11, Genesis 11. The people turn away. They form communities, and then they form their cities, and then they form nations. But they turn away from the truth about God, because everybody had the same knowledge. Nobody's a victim here. Oh, I just didn't know. Everybody knew. But they turned away from what they knew to worship the things that they can see, and the practices, again, become very corrupt. All of the other nations and all of the other people of the nations that are in those nations, they're just all going to go in that envelope, and I'm going to let you put that envelope back into Noah's family. Because they had the knowledge and because they turned from the knowledge, God lets all the other nations go their own way. But it's not because He's not concerned about them. It's that they have had the knowledge and have turned away from what they've known. And where we get that from is Paul says it in Acts chapter 14. In generations gone by, God permitted all the nations to go their own way. And He sets a plan where He is going to bring those nations back to Him. But for the time being, the nations are doing whatever they want. And God calls Abraham out of that, and He says, Abraham, I want you to follow me. God is telling Abraham to leave that system And if you want to put on the top of your envelope there, the Abraham envelope, these three names right here, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, these are the founding fathers of a nation that God is going to build. And they're a little bit different from our founding fathers, because when we talk about the founding fathers of our country, we're not thinking that George Washington was the father of Thomas Jefferson, or that they had all the people that live in America came from their families. But in this nation that God is going to make out of Abraham, Abraham is a righteous man, and he has a son, Isaac, and Isaac has a son, Jacob. Those are the three founding fathers of the nation, the Jewish nation that God is going to build through the rest of Scripture. And if you understand the family, you can understand the rest of Scripture. If you know the family secrets. How many of you have ever been invited to a picnic or a family picnic of someone that you don't know, but you were invited as a guest? And okay, I can see some of you know what I'm talking about. And you go, and everybody knows everybody except for you because you're a guest. And they're all talking about people that they know, and they have the history, and you kind of are a little bit lost. Well, this is what happens when people come into Scripture. They don't know who the family is. This is a family. Abraham's the grandfather, Isaac is the son, and Jacob is the grandson. And if you don't know the family, when you start reading the rest of Scripture, it doesn't make sense because you don't know the family secrets. So what I want to do, I want to tell you the family secrets.